Hello, this is Pastor Pat and his wife Lori from Freedom Worship Center. We're here to wish all of the mothers a happy Mother's Day. We have a message called Good News for Mothers. Now, Proverbs 31 is a classic portrayal of a godly, virtuous woman, a mother, a wife, and a custodian of her household. It is the best passage to tell the story of motherhood. She's the perfect mother. She has character, fears the Lord. She is a godly woman. She's industrious and doesn't binge watch reality shows. This woman is a role model for all women. You may notice that there are no flaws in this woman's life. God placed this story as an example of what a godly woman and mother should be. However, most mothers have not lived up to the Proverbs 31 woman. We all have flaws, mothers and fathers alike. All have failed and not been the best parents. We could have done better. The burden is more than we can bear, causing us to neglect important things. Wouldn't you like to take a giant eraser and wipe away all the mistakes? I'm going to turn it over to my wife Lori now to talk a little bit about motherhood.
I remember as a young mother of two participating in a mom's group, finding myself comparing myself with other moms. There was a mom in our group that had the best recipes and the cleanest house. I remember one of my friends saying, I would eat off of her floors. I really would. One day, her daughter, who was about 8 years old, came to my house, promptly walked over to my living room window, looked at the bottom of the window frame, and said, You don't clean your window tracks, do you? I was so taken back by this expectation of perfection that I was speechless. Currently, during this pandemic, even more expectations have been placed on moms. Now, moms must be more creative in the kitchen because some groceries just are not available. The other day, I tried 3 stores and could not find baking soda. Moms are having to learn how to homeschool their children, provide activities during home quarantine, and even become infection control experts in their homes. These additional tasks and challenges can make our roles as moms overwhelming. If you are feeling overwhelmed this Mother's Day, you are not alone. With social distancing and isolation, we find ourselves drawn to social media even more. It is easy to compare ourselves or compare our lives and families to others on social media. You are unique, and God has a wonderful plan for your life. Your calling as a mother is filled with wonderful adventures put there by the God who loves you. Find confidence and contentment in who God made you to be. The recovering perfectionist said, I am beautifully broken, perfectly imperfect, beautiful in my flaws. Altogether, I am a beautiful disaster. There is good news. God does not demand perfection. Listen to 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 8. And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things, you may abound in every good work.
Yes, mothers, I've got good news for you. There are 3 things God would have you know, things that apply to every one of us. Number 1, God remembers your efforts, not your perfection. God has a special record of all a mother has done. God has a book of remembrance. He records those special times of fellowship when he sat around and talked about him. Malachi 3:16 says, Then those who feared the Lord spoke with one another. The Lord paid attention and heard them, and a book of remembrance was written before him of those who feared the Lord and esteemed his name. God keeps a book and a record of your tears. When we think he doesn't notice, he makes note of it. Psalms 56:8 from the Good News Bible tells us that you know how troubled I am. You have kept a record of my tears. Aren't they listed in your book? Surely God has a book with all the efforts of a mother. It contains a record of all those long hours, days, and years she has invested in her children. God sees a mother's diligence. The Proverbs 31 mother has no grass growing under her feet. Proverbs 31:27 says she keeps a close eye on the conduct of her family, and she does not eat the bread of idleness. I want to read to you the definition of a mother. She rises up from sleep to soothe the cries from the crib. She sits beside the bed to cool a feverish brow. Mother cooks, scrubs, irons, and mops, but still has time for every problem, no matter how great or small. She sings that remembered lullaby. Her voice may crack, her sharps are flats, but it is the song of angels. She bandages skinned knees and can kiss the pain away with a consoling word that makes everything all right. As grandmother, she will spoil the children because she loves them so deeply and sees another you. Mother is the one who will do the most for you and ask the least. Her hope never fades. No matter how far away you are or how often you neglect her, she is always there to do whatever you ask. At Mom's death, you realize that you never get accustomed to the absence of her presence. What you took for granted is no longer granted you. A part of the best is gone, and you miss her dreadfully. But you are not alone without her. Look inside of you. Mother, God remembers your efforts. He sees a mother's diligence, and God sees a mother's determination to do well. Proverbs 31:17 says she puts on strength like a belt and goes to work with energy. Proverbs 31:25 says strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She's a strong woman of courage and determination. Proverbs 31:23 says her husband is known at the gates when he sits with the elders. You see, he has bragging rights about a wonderful wife. His wife gets up early to feed the family. She buys a field and plants the crops she gives to the needy. She makes certain her family is clothed. What does this guy do? Well, would you get me something from the fridge, honey? Would you mind handing me the channel changer? There are special rewards in heaven for faithful mothers who never gave up doing right for their children. Irma Bombeck wrote, "How many times have your kids laid this one on you? You don't love me." Someday when my children are old enough to grasp the logic and motivation, I'll tell them, I loved you enough to bug you about where you were going and what time you would get home, to tell you your friend was a creep, and to stand by for hours while you cleaned your bedroom, a 15-minute job. I loved you enough to ignore what every other mother did or said, enough to let you stumble, fall, hurt, and fail, and enough to say no even when you disagreed. Some mothers figure the longer the kids hang around, the better parents they are. But I see children as kites. You spend a lifetime trying to get them off the ground. Good news, mothers. God remembers your efforts. Number two, mothers, God also forgives your failures. We all have to admit that we have not always been our best. Mothers don't always fulfill the role in Proverbs 31. They say the wrong things in the wrong voice. They've sometimes not been fair or given proper time to the family. The good news is that God forgives your failures. When you are sorry and willing to ask forgiveness, God is willing to forgive. Psalms 51:7 says, "Remove my sin and I will be clean. Wash me and I will be whiter than snow." We cannot change the past, but we can be forgiven. However, there are things a mother can do to prevent failure in the future. To prevent failure in the future, set the right example. Children learn by example. What kind of example is it for your kid when you quote the hollow statement, "Do as I say, not as I do"? The things that are important to you will become important to them. They learn by example. If you want them to love the Lord, show them how. Go to church and on time. Read your Bible and pray with them. You only have your children for a brief time. Instill in them godliness, character, and virtue. A mother's influence is insurmountable. Mothers, set the right example. To prevent failure in the future, send the right message. Proverbs 31:26 says, "She opens her mouth with wisdom, and upon her tongue is the law of kindness." The Lord knows we need light in our dark world today. Mothers do send forth a beacon of light to their children and grandchildren. Every mother has a message to tell. Unfortunately, some send the right message and some do not. Some mothers don't deserve the title of mother. But if you desire to be a godly mother, send the right message. To prevent failure in the future, be a teacher. Teach a walk of faith. 2 Timothy 1:5 says, "I am reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now I am sure dwells in you as well." It is important that our children see that we truly believe in God and His ability to care for us. She honors her husband. He's known at the gates. That shows that she shows respect to him. I might add, husbands, you are accountable to God for the way you treat your wife and your children. She dresses appropriately and teaches it to her children. 1 Timothy 2:9 says, "That women adorn themselves in modest apparel with propriety and discretion, which is fitting for women professing godliness by good works." Now, you don't have to dress in sackcloth, but do dress appropriately. Mothers, send the right message to your children. This is the way godly women are to look. Proverbs 31:30 says, "Favor is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that fears the Lord shall be praised." Godliness is the beauty that is inside. She lives for God, and her life teaches the message. Good news for mothers. God remembers your efforts and He forgives your failures. And 3, mothers, God also shares your burdens. Only a mother knows the burden of missed opportunities. We wish we could redo some things. We would give them more attention and compassion. Then there was the matter of discipline. Maybe we were a little unfair, or we responded in anger rather than love. Maybe we didn't teach our children a disciplined life. We had the opportunity to do things better, but we didn't. Mothers, please know that a loving God is willing to take your burden and carry it with you. Psalms 55:22 says, "Cast your burden on the Lord and He will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved." Only a mother knows the burden of missed children. I want to read you a poem called "A Small Handprint on the Wall." One day, as I was picking the toys up off the floor, I noticed a small handprint on the wall beside the door. I knew that it was something that I'd seen most every day, but this time when I saw it there, I wanted to stay. Then tears welled up within my eyes. I knew it wouldn't last, for every mother knows her children grow up way too fast. Just then I put my chores aside and held my children tight. I sang to them sweet lullabies and rocked into the night. Sometimes we take for granted all those things that seem so small, like one of God's great treasures, a small handprint on the wall. Did Hannah cry when she gave Samuel to the Lord? Her rejoicing was mixed with tears. She knew that someday she would have to say goodbye. The hardest thing in raising children is knowing that the day will come when they will make a life for themselves. The realization sets in that we have done all we can. Now they are on their own. God shares your burden. He said goodbye to his son. He knows exactly how it feels to miss a child. In conclusion, there is good news for mothers. May I say to you, mothers, doing your best is more important than being the best. The Proverbs 31 mother is perfect with no flaw in her life. We know that there are no perfect mothers in this life. They only exist in heaven. However, just do your best. That is all God expects. It is comforting to know that God remembers the sincere efforts of mothers. He is quick to forgive your failures, and He is willing to carry your burdens. We'd like to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, and we ask God that He will bless you this day, and our prayer is that you will be blessed each and every day of your life. God bless you in Jesus' name.